Thank you, Zoe, for joining us today.
Thank you.
So if I just put your career beginnings into context, you started in theatre, becoming a member of the Royal Shakespeare Company in 1976, I believe, and I think this was following the footsteps of your dad, who was not only an incredibly talented actor himself, but also the man who is credited as bringing about the recreation of the London Globe's theatre. So my first question to you is, was becoming an actress inevitable? Was it destined? Was it what your parents wanted? Was it always what you wanted?
No, my parents didn't want me to go into the business at all. And they put everything in my way not to do it. Because my mother was also an actress, and my father, they were both blacklisted by McCarthy, and that's why I'm here. They came here in the 50s, I was about 3, I think. So, and then my parents' passports were taken away, so they were stuck, but that didn't stop my father at all. So, as I was growing up, my dad went to Stratford to play Iago with Paul Robeson playing Othello, and it was a very magical, romantic place to be, and I kind of fell in love with Stratford and pretending that I was a fairy or something. It was in my blood, I think. But then I went to art school for a year, and then I did secretarial course for a year, and then I worked in an office for a year, trying to avoid. I did something called speed writing. And as I discovered I was dyslexic, which was not a very good idea, I finally persuaded my parents to let me go to drama school. And so I was fairly late going to drama school compared to the other students that were around me. I left in 1970, and then at that time I did repertory companies, repertory all around England. Oxford Playhouse being one place. Leeds, I went to Edinburgh, I went to Cambridge Theatre Company, and then finally in 1976 I joined the Royal Shakespeare Company, which I did on and off until, I can't remember when. And that progression, I think, and then I sort of did the odd telly, which was at that time. I wanted to be a proper actress, and I thought television at that time was crude. But how things have changed. So from there, I really wanted to be a theatre actress, and film and television were sort of, when I was younger then, was not so important, but I'm glad I did that. So the RSC kind of was wonderful for a bit, and then I started doing new plays with them. What else? So in answer to your question, no, they didn't want me to be in the business. That's okay. Really what, that's...
So, but when, so I think you said around, it was age 10 when you watched Othello. That was when,
yeah.
That was when you sort of fell in love and realised, I do want to be an actress.
Yes.
So was that specifically, were you always sort of like, Shakespeare, a proper actress?
No, it's funny that I just fell in love with the actual theatricality of it all, and I think the romantic side of it. It was then when I became an actor that I started to realise that it wasn't so glamorous at all, I think I just loved the process with which an actor works, and finding a way of discovering how one approaches a character and how one tells a story and inhabits a character, how you keep the story is the most important thing, and that bit of education was very, very strong for me. And it's still something that I try and pursue and look forward to trying to learn how to. You keep learning, I think in life anyway, most of us do. You just keep thinking, oh, I'll never do that again, and then something else happens that you think, yes, I told myself that wouldn't happen. Those sort of things.
Perhaps you said that about Oxford Union speeches. Oh,
I said that about, yes, I would never do an Oxford Union speech. I couldn't bear it. I mean, you're all too bright for me, in different ways.
Yeah. So perhaps your most renowned role as an actress, probably certainly amongst the audience here, was within your capacity as Susan Harper in My Family.
Yes.
Firstly, did you ever see yourself going into comedy, and more than that, going into a sitcom that actually is probably one of the most iconic sitcoms that there is? How did you come to find yourself as part of My Family?
I was asked to do it. That's why. It's always good. No, I like doing comedy. I really enjoyed doing comedy on stage, but the script was good. Everything is usually ruled by the script. The writing is the most important thing in any medium, and that's what attracted to me was it was my kind of humour. It was written by an American, and that's my kind of bag. English humour, British humour at that time was sort of, well, it's just a bit obvious, whereas American humour is much more, it's crueler. It's just crueler, and it has more irony, and irony is much more fun than dropping your trousers, although that's fun too, but that appealed to me, and also the way that excuse me, My Family worked was that you could, if the scenes didn't work, if a scene didn't work, the writers would rewrite the scene on the spot. Sometimes we used to do that on the spot, somewhat to the similar ways that Friends was shot and discovered. So there was a pool of writers. So you'd get a new script on the Friday, rehearse it, shoot it Wednesday and Thursday, Thursday in front of an audience. And sometimes we would change a line or a script in front of the audience, and that was the exciting part, because it was like improvisation. So that's what attracted me. Also working with Robert Lindsay, who I'd known over the years but never worked with, and that was chemistry. And that's what keeps you going. It keeps you going when you have a relationship with another human being, with another actor, which you can enjoy. And I admired him. I thought he could be really boring sometimes, but it was a really good team. It was a good teamwork, and that's great fun.
So with Susan in particular, how much does her character and personality match your own? I would assume if you're making up lines on the spot, you probably are putting a lot of your own personality into Susan, as she's very sassy, very witty. Are you both of those things?
It's not for me to tell. She's smarter than he is, and that's what made it fun.
Are you smarter than Robert? Is this where you tell me?
I'm not smarter. I think that the character of Robert's character, Ben, was pretty stupid. And I think Susan was much smarter than he was. And she knows it, and he knows it. That's what made it funny for me. And it sort of, it kind of developed that way. I'm not like Susan in the sense that I am not a very imaginative cook. And what else? I'm not as smart as Susan, I think, but also I'm much more aware of my own personality rather than Susan has no awareness, self-awareness really. She thinks she's pretty cool. So
probably again with this audience, the other two things that you might be known for more would be Harry Potter and your role in that, and also your episode in Doctor Who. So both of which I'm sure a lot of people know and love. So firstly with Harry Potter, you were in the first movie, and did you know at the time, like, did you think the movies would be as big as the books, as big as it has been? You are still seen as like a very, very much like part of the Harry Potter gang, and how did that all feel?
I read the books because one of the oh God, never mind. There was a kid reading it on my family, the young boy, Gabriel, his name is. Gabriel was reading these books, and it was difficult to get him on to rehearse. So I started reading the first one, and it's my kind of book. When I was at school, the books that I used to try and read, started to read very early on, and I used to go to the library and get them out, were all fairy books. They're all the fairy stories, like all of them. And so then I started reading science fiction as well, and then I moved on to cool stuff. And but that kind of writing, it just really was inventive and clever, and made the fact that this kid was reading this without wanting to work was wonderful for me. And so then I started reading all of them. When they asked me to do it, it was great because I knew exactly what to do with Madame Hooch, and that I knew what kind of wizard she was. And also the great thing was that a lot of the actors in it I knew were friends of mine, so it was like a party. And it was great fun. And the first scene I shot, for instance, was at Alnwick Castle, when she teaches the kids to fly with the broomsticks. And I just walked out onto the set, I had my wig on and my eyes are in, and I walked onto the set, and there were these kids with broomsticks on the ground. I just thought I would died and gone to heaven. It was absolutely what I had imagined from those books. It was a very exciting time. It was. I didn't think it would become as major as it has. There was an afternoon, I'll tell you, because the kids have to have chaperones, they can only be worked a certain amount of times in the day, and there was a huge scene in the great hall, so there are about 30 kids, so they have to rotate the children. So they can work for 4 hours, and then they have to stop, and they have to go and have school lessons. So another 30 kids are brought in to be in the Great Hall. And there was one day when Alan Rickman, Maggie Smith, myself, Richard Harris, I can't remember who else, we were in the makeup chair early, well, not too early, because 8 o'clock is not early. So we were in there for 8 o'clock, had put my eyes in, put my wig on, and then we sat there and we waited, and then a second AD, second assistant director, comes in and said, I'm sorry, we're going to have to break for lunch, and then there's a new kids are going to have to come in. So we broke for lunch, took the eyes out, read all the magazines, did all the gossip. This is all in this makeup room. And finally we get to tea time, then it's a break for tea. So then we had tea. Then Richard Harris was lying with his beard all in bows, all done up, so it wouldn't go up his nose. and he was sleeping. We'd done all the gossip, we'd done the crosswords, we'd done everything. Everybody's like, so this was at 5 o'clock. There's a knock at the door, and the second AD comes in and says, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but it's a wrap. And Richard Harris was lying there, and he literally went, and then he started, he was about to just explode. You could see his face, and those bows and everything there. I just started to laugh. I just thought it was and then he turned on me and said, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Look at us, we've been here all day, we've had a nice chat, we've had a nice cup of tea, we've had some and we're getting paid." It was very funny. It was really, anyway. That was just one example of the kind of thing, but it's a big machine now.
Did you ever get any memorabilia? That's always the classic question.
Yes, I did. I got, because Dick Rickman said to me, the letters, you know those letters, he gets posted these letters by owls, and the props department had hundreds of them because they flutter in all over the place. So he nicked a few, so I nicked a few. Then we had a big Christmas scene where we had to sing in the Great Hall, and we had the props department was incredible. You had little scrolls by your plate, and you'd open the scroll, and there was the song, the Hoggart song, written with gold and just the intricacy of each one. They'd made hundreds of them. And so we nicked a couple of those. And Rickman actually did raise a hell of a lot of money for some charity in Los Angeles for it. It was wonderful. And so I nicked those. I think I've got one left.
So, and then the other part was Doctor Who, and
oh yeah.
So I remember this episode quite well. It's when you basically play some skin that's been stretched, pretty much, and
she's had so many facelifts.
Yes.
That's all she's got is that piece of parchment. Made me laugh.
Which is quite an interesting concept in itself.
Brilliant.
But, and so you were the voice, and so weren't actually acting.
No, I was because they recorded. They put me in a little booth, and they filmed my mouth and my eyes.
Wow. Okay.
So and then they superimposed that onto this piece of parchment, but it's a brilliant script. It was a wonderful idea. I mean, I've met people who've had so many facelifts they'll get a beard. You know, it's just. And then the catchphrase, moisturize me, which was, kids were saying that in the playground. It was fantastic. No, I thought it was just a marvelous conception.
So I was wondering, was it more difficult to, like, even with that intricacy, like, was it more difficult would it be more difficult just to be in flesh and acting as your full self rather than your lips and your voice? Did you prefer it? Like,
no, I just thought it was rock and roll. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was exciting. I thought it was a very imaginative idea. But I did come in one episode. I turned into an image of me. I took over Billie Piper's body, and I took her out and became her, because she was clever before she exploded. But yeah, she was good. It was brilliantly invented. Wonderful writing.
Good. So similarly on this line of sort of voices, you also last year played Princess Marie in Mr. Selfridge, and she had a Russian accent. Yeah. How on earth, like you don't have you have a very wonderfully British accent. How on earth did you manage to? How much time and practice went into just ensuring that you had that perfect?
A lot. I had a dialect coach who I work with a lot. I listen to a lot of Russian. It just happens that my ancestors are all Russian, so it helped. No, I did a lot of homework on that. And also the fact that this is a wonderful character and a real human being who I did a lot of research on, so she's phenomenally Russian and been brought up in Paris. she'd been embezzling people for years. She was brilliant at it, and I just got into that character an awful lot, that personality.
Yeah. So moving away from your career now, so two things that I'd like to discuss. Firstly, Zoe has done so much tremendous charity work, and that ranges from comic relief that you've done a number of times to more recent things in Africa. So I was wondering if you wanted to explain some of the projects that you worked on, some of the things. I know I had a cheeky look at your Twitter and looking at your work with the Nepalese charity.
Right.
So perhaps you wanted to share some of the projects you've been working on with that.
I did a series called Love Hurts a long time ago with a pop star called Adam Faith. And Adam and I went to, we shot it in Africa and then Russia, Israel and then Russia. But because of the character that I played, I got lots of letters and requests for me to be patrons of various things, and one of them was about trees, planting trees, which I thought was a very powerful and strong advisory thing to do, considering there's climate change and also people trying to eat, particularly in Africa, where the deserts erode and everything. So by planting trees, you actually you keep the soil good, and you also give byproducts. All that, I mean, but I'm sort of sucker for most things about the environment, and trying to save what we have and not destroy it. That's all I can say. I can't do everything. You know, you get asked to do, once you've been on television or indeed film, once you become famous, people want to use you, and it's great because it pushes it into some kind of spotlight. But you can't do. I have learnt to actually pull back, because unless I can be there or be much more visually there, I don't want to commit to too many. So I've tried not to do that. So really, I'm there in spirit, not there all the time. And so I can't, there's so many things that need looking at and helping and encouraging, that it's just too much after a time. And also then you get accused of actually spreading yourself too thin, or because she's a personality, she can do it, it's blah blah. And also people can turn on you, say, just because you're in the media you think you've got an opinion. We've all got an opinion, we've all got a point of view, and if you have the chance to be able to make that opinion that much more in the forefront, then that's great. But you have to be, also, it's a conundrum, because you want to help as much as you can, but you have to be careful. I have to be careful, because I'll say something stupid or something.
Okay, so I think now we'll open up to the audience questions.
Yes.
If that's okay with you. So if we start at the front here.
Well, I think I speak on behalf of everyone here in the chamber tonight. Thank you for coming, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So I'm wondering, what does the future hold? What's next for you in your career, or what's happening in your life?
I've just finished doing something called Britannia for Sky and Amazon, which is based very loosely on the second invasion of the Romans in 43 AD. It's mad. It's absolutely mad, and it probably will be being shown in September. It was shot mainly in Prague, just outside Prague, which was beautiful. And I play a character called Queen Antidia, I did a wonderful, my research books were like this. I mean, it was great. It was great to learn about that. And that's been what's coming next. I did a play earlier this year. The great thing about my family was that I could do theatre in between doing my family. We never knew from one series to the next whether we were actually going to go again, so I would go into the theatre, I would do something else, which I enjoy doing very much. So I always went back to the theatre, and I did a play called Elegy at the Donmar last year, which was fascinating, by a guy called Nick Payne, who wrote a play called Constellations, which was a big hit, and this Elegy was a fascinating story as well. So that's sort of and then I worked with Ken Branagh on the season at the Garrick Theatre early last year, when I did a Terence Rattigan double bill with him, and that was great. And then I started filming from June, July until December, this 10-part series called Britannia. That's what I've been doing. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much for a very informative session. This is a question more going back to your days at drama school.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article in The Stage magazine last year, I think it was, where Derek Jacobi was quoted as saying that drama schools can't really teach you anything and there's not much point in going. As someone who's considering applying to drama school, I was just wondering what your thoughts on that are, and what you feel going to drama school has taught you and helped you with in your career.
Right. Repertory companies don't exist anymore, really. And I was lucky to be part of that whole old system, which was that there were companies all over the country. When I left drama school, I went to Manchester, then I went to Leeds, then I went to Oxford, then I went to Cambridge, then I went to Edinburgh. So my education was, after I left drama school, was learning, was doing. It's the doing of it. Also, theatre was more important in a way than it is now, particularly outside of London. And there aren't any repertory companies anymore. The value for me of going to drama school at that time was a 3-year course. It was like going to a university, in the sense that I had to move, I learnt how to speak, how to project, how to read, look at different writing, different plays. I learnt Aikido, I learnt fencing, I learnt tumbling, I learnt how to stand up straight. I had a wonderful movement, there were movement classes every day, a voice class every day, script discussions every day. It was an academy. At that time, there was no concentration on working with the camera, how to project in a camera, how to audition in front of. Now you audition on your cell phone. Now you do Skype. Now you do so it's a different medium now. But it's fascinating to go and see instead of going to the RSC, I usually go to the National a lot, because it's close. And you can, or even the fringe, a lot of fringe stuff. But it's quite obvious when somebody doesn't stand on stage and doesn't speak properly. You can't hear them, they can't articulate, they don't stand properly. That's on camera, you don't see that so much. So it depends which drama school you go to. It's what they're offering you, and what if you want to be an actor, my dad used to say this to me, you have to be everything. You have to be a juggler. You have to juggle, you have to fence, you have to sing, you have to play an instrument, you have to be everything. So you have all those things at your fingertips. And actually now, it's more about, actually it's always been about, Marlon Brando said, it's all about, he said, no, maybe it was my dad, I can't remember which, they're both the same, but it's 90% personality. The rest of it is technique and brain. And I think that still exists. But if you want to have a career as an actor, which means that, which is something that I think my parents believed in, was you have to be able to do it all. And you have to be open to it all. For me, the theatre is my first love, because it's more rigorous, it's more exciting because you can change things, and also after the director goes, you can do what you like. But on film, you only get one hit, one chance, depending on what kind of director you work with. But it's very exciting. Now it's very exciting. But if you want to keep a career, then that's got to keep you going until you die.
First, thank you so much for being here. I was wondering, in this drama series Poirot, there was a specific episode called Elephants Remember, in which Madame Oliver took the case in her hands, going on the field, asking questions and analysing. So I thought that was a turning point for her character, because apart from being a supportive friend and loyal and supportive friend to Poirot, she became herself the detective. How did you feel about it?
Thank you. Agatha Christie wrote this character really because she was so bored with Poirot. And she wrote about 8 or 10 stories, which are all started with Ariadne Oliver, who always had an instinct about something. She's a complete antithesis of Hercule, absolutely scatty, mad, imaginative, full of questions, and they are a sort of a double act because of her messiness and his clarity and his precision. And it was a wonderful, David Suchet and I worked together at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and we became very good friends. And 78, I think, what I want to say. And we talked a lot about this. Anyway, so the stories are very funny. Agatha has written the most wonderful character. Her writing is exceptional. Her personality that she's actually made it into herself. She wrote it as a comic thing of her, basically herself. So she sent herself up all the way through. I can't really answer you about the denouement. Because it's called Poirot, they didn't want to make it about Ariadne, which it is about. All the stories are led by Ariadne. She always brings her friend Poirot in to solve the clue. But he always relies on her instinct and her scattiness. But there's some wonderful scenes in the books which are hysterically funny when they argue. It was a peach. It was a peach to do. I really enjoyed it. Did I answer your question? Not really.
Okay, so if we go to the lady at the end there.
Thank you very much for coming today. I watched the production of Cherry Orchard at the National Theatre 4 years ago, and I wanted to ask how you worked on Ranevska, and also, I wrote actually an article about Chekhov on a British stage, and it seems that with comparison with the productions in Russia, it seems more to do with the history of Russia, like Howard Davis writes about Russia on the brink of change. But in Russia now, the productions of Chekhov are more out of history, more metaphorical, absurd, without, the costume of the period. So I was wondering if you think that in England, Chekhov could be put in the costumes of 2012, or done on Mars, or so if it can overcome the tradition of reality productions.
I understand what you're saying. The production of The Cherry Orchard, which I did with Howard Davis, a wonderful director who has died last year, was an adaptation that was done by Andrew Upton, who had done an adaptation of, I can't think of it just now, at the moment, another Russian play, White Guard. He did a very good adaptation of The White Guard. As far as The Cherry Orchard that we did, Howard Davis decided to take it just a bit further into the 20th century when telephones were had come to, so it was in the late 1800s. So he just pushed it a little bit further so that there may have been a telephone, so he'd made it much more present to the explosion that happened with communications and trains and progress and Paris that was happening. So it was all interlinked. Putting things into a 21st century idiom, it won't happen because Howard Davis has died. I don't think that those plays will ever be done again in the way that Howard Davis directed them, with an incredible knowledge of history, incredible rigor to the writing and what was going on, the history that was going on at the time. I mean, I went to see Hedda Gabler at the National, which was done in a white box, so that the implications of when it was written about femininity, of being trapped, which caused a huge, another explosion in history about the writing that happened then, and the conflict between man and woman, and relationships and power, all that. I don't know whether it enlightens that essence or not. I'm not against it. I'm not against it whatever, as long as it's about people and people's relationship. The fact that it's happened in that period, at that time, probably is lost in that particular production. I don't know what the answer is. If it's good, if it engages you, if it makes you think about your own, I mean, that's what theatre does. It's supposed to take you out of yourself and make you question and make you look. Then that's important, and that will always be important. There are Shakespeare productions which they do in modern dress. That doesn't disturb us. That doesn't worry us. There's some done in women playing, Harriet Walter has just done a massive 3 plays in modern dress set in a prison, women's prison. Glenda Jackson has just done it, playing Lear. It doesn't matter. As long as the power of the play, the projection of the play, what is behind the play, the human conflict, is really what it's about. It's difficult when you see something where you think, I have no idea what fuck's going on. Then the play doesn't work, then the production doesn't work. It's really about humanity. It's about people. It's about relationships and what it does to what we do to each other. Theatre can be done in any way you like, as long as it's good and it's inventive and it's exciting. It's an event. The theatre is an event.
In Doctor Who, you played the same character in 2 very different episodes, very different locations, different casts, even different doctors. What's it like to play the same character, but in 2 very distinct different stories?
It's a doddle. It's a doddle, that's the only thing I can say. It was wonderful doing the first one when she's just this stretched thing, and the second one when I decided to make her completely different, like, that character. Have you ever seen a film called Mars Attacks, which is extraordinary? They've got this extraordinary woman who's got this body like this, so she's like that, and she floats all over the place. That's kind of what I had in my head when I appeared as a real person, or a form of Cassandra. And so inventing that was just as much fun. So that was good. Yeah, it was good.
Hi. With regards to Shakespeare, I was wondering, when you were part of the RSC, if you had a favourite role that you took on, or if there's a role which you would like to take on, or a play that you would like to see happen today?
Or a play I'd like to see. That's huge. When I went to the RSC, that was first in '76, I was at the Barbican, and I did various plays, a couple of plays there, Ivanov, which I did there. Then when I was asked to go up to Stratford, I really wanted to do new writing rather than Shakespeare, which is what happened. And so I was only in that season. Oh no, yeah. Then I went back and I did Twelfth Night there, which is a play I'm very fond of. It's a beautiful play. As far as parts that I would love to play in Shakespeare, they've kind of gone because they're all 12. And I don't have one, and I don't particularly want to play King Lear or Henry V, or I love going to see Shakespeare. I love watching it. I've been asked many times to do Cleopatra, and you just have to have a very good director and a very good Antony, and those two things are not easy to find. And no, I don't have a character that I've always wanted to play Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream. I've thought that'd be a really good character to play. But the characters that I could have played, I didn't, so I don't worry about it. There's no point in going back. A very old Juliet would be good. On a Zimmer frame. Anybody else?
We have time for one more. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, a question occurred to me while you were talking about having to be a juggler when you're an actress.
Yeah.
What was the most tricky thing you've been asked to do when you've been acting? And as a side note, I think you'd make a very good Puck.
Say that again, what was that last bit?
You'd make a very good Puck.
I may make a very good Puck. Thank you. So I don't have to do it now. The most difficult thing, I had to learn to sing again. That's another thing at drama school, you learn to sing. I went to New York and they do something called encores, which is, they produce for a week a musical that has been either on Broadway or somewhere, which has been sort of forgotten, and they do a production of it, which is supposed to be just a rehearsed reading of it, which has now become a kind of a big number. They asked me to do a musical called Zorba, and I was playing Stevie Smith at the time, which is a huge learn. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And I had to learn in 3 weeks 4 songs, big songs, and I had to learn it quickly because then I would fly to New York. When I finished TV, I flew to New York, and then I had to go straight into rehearsal, costume fitting, straight into rehearsal, straight with wigs, everything. And then we'd have a week to rehearse it with chorus and dancers and people lifting me up and things like that. That was the most difficult thing. And also to do it rehearse it in 1 week, play it for 1 week, and learn 4 songs in key. That was the most difficult thing, and it was the most exciting thing I've ever done. It was wonderful. Packed house. It's just extraordinary. It was scary, really scary. But I got lifted up in the air by boys and carried around, and John Turturro was my Zorba, and some fabulous singers and dancers. It was really exciting. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. It was great. Yeah.
Great, so that is all we have time for. I think all of you will agree that Zoe has been fantastic, so please do put a big hand together.